This week on Culture Leaders, I sat down with Bart Fanelli, founder of Skillibrium and a long-term operator with deep experience leading revenue teams inside high-growth companies. Bart is on a mission to bring skill back into the conversation, especially in leadership. And in this episode, he shares how clarity, consistency, and accountability became the foundation of his approach to building high-performing teams. He talks about the danger of over-indexing on tools and dashboards and why real performance still comes down to people having hard conversations, setting expectations, and holding each other accountable. Bart also opens up about the lessons he learned scaling organizations quickly and the personal stories that shaped his leadership style along the way. If you've ever struggled to align your teams, coach your managers, or build a culture that balances results with trust, this one's for you. Please welcome to the podcast, Bart Fanelli. So, Bart, welcome.
Hi, Jessica.
My first question is my favorite question. What is your why?
I ask that question a lot too, of others. And so I've had to ask myself that, obviously. It's a legacy for me. What am I leaving behind? What am I doing to change and help industry and or create a legacy for my family? I have 3 boys, so they're going to be around. Hopefully the name will carry for a while in a positive light, doing good things.
It's so old school. I mean, I haven't heard anyone say the word legacy for a long time. The name being passed down through boys. I mean, it's like medieval England. We're passing down like royalty. I mean, I love that. So what do you want your legacy to be, though?
No hypocrisy, genuine, pure and objective, and a good person, So I think there's a lot of hypocrisy out there in business and in world and cultures, right? So it bugs the hell out of me. And so I do my best to rise to that standard of no hypocrisy, being true and honest and listening before I respond. And if it's going to conflict, then sometimes I just have to bow out because it's not worth it.
Can you give me an example of hypocrisy in business that you think is?
Oh, think of how many CEOs or how many executives you speak with regularly or watch in the media or on LinkedIn, whatever it may be, that say one thing, and then when it really comes down to day-to-day action and operating the business, they do the exact opposite. Or they don't realize what they're doing. I don't know, but I have a very difficult time when the message is not translated from the CEO to the ground level in a consistent, clear, and repeatable way. Because the pendulum swing is what kills companies. And I don't want to be a part of that.
So are you talking about leaders who are saying they're people first, but then making non-people first decisions? Or are you just talking about, I mean, I've seen it with AI, where these leaders are talking about AI is not going to take our jobs. We're investing in AI, but we're still going to be focused on people. And then everyone knows that AI is going to take our jobs. And so there's hypocrisy there.
I don't know. So we can unpack that one. But I'll give you an example. Yeah. We're a people first culture, high performance only, and we're going to give you everything you need to succeed. And then the day comes when you have to invest and hold the line in doing that. And rather than doing that, the easy decision is to let things be as they are. An example would be a field organization, which is where my time is usually spent. And we have only a handful of performers in some obscure place. And then the variety or the mass of the rest of the field is underperforming. But instead of replacing them and bringing in culture and talent that will actually perform and do the job as designed, they keep them. So it's hypocrisy at its finest, where they either don't know how to make the change to live up to what they're saying, or they're not courageous enough to do it. I don't know. I see it a lot at the team level, at the leader level, it's everywhere.
Well, it's interesting because you said earlier on the legacy that you want to leave, that you want to be objective.
Yes.
Objective was an important part of the legacy. But I mean, that's a pretty subjective area that you're talking about, right?
I don't think it is. How would it be subjective? Because when we think about objectivity in business, especially if it's revenue performance, there's role-based skills that you have to have. There's things that you have to do, and it should be defined for you by the company that you're in. And if you don't adhere or follow or collaborate or improve then you shouldn't be able to stay, especially if your performance is not to standard. So that's a very pure approach, and that's a very objective approach. There is some subjectivity based on the situation, the time, or the window we're in. But at the end of the day, historically, over time, the majority do nothing.
Well, it reminds me of a past guest that we had on the show that said their mantra was change the people or change the people. And so when you change the people versus change the people, I think is subjective. I mean, how do you know when someone's time is up and when they just need a little bit more coaching or guidance? I mean, I'm thinking of when I was early in my career and I had a manager who was totally checked out, and my performance was bad because I was not given any direction. I needed a lot more hand-holding at the time. Whose fault was that? Who needed to go, so to speak, right? I mean, that's, I think, the subjective part.
I love that. Well, where was that manager's manager? Because that manager
let me tell you, that manager's manager was being fed lines by the person that was managing me, saying Jessica doesn't know what she's doing.
Well, yeah. So that's the problem. That's bad leadership. And so you said, how do you know? Well, like if you think of the way a revenue business runs, it runs on a cadence, quarterly, right? Now we would rather it run monthly, but monthly linearity and revenue is really difficult. Quarterly, it's natural because most companies are measured quarterly. When you have a down quarter, it's usually a byproduct of the behaviors the previous quarter. You don't randomly find revenue. There are leading indicators of activity that we know work, that produce lagging indicators of results that usually are predictable. And if those are disconnected, we know. And if your leadership is not tuned into that, then they can't help you. It's actually their problem. And the descendant or the hierarchy in leadership should manage that. But the flaw or the hypocrisy is it's the contributor not being helped, doesn't have the next best action, doesn't have the coaching and the support that they need. So therefore, they're the ones that take the hit. And that's a problem. It's the leader's problem, quite honestly. So, and it should be no guesswork. It should be very binary to a degree, and then we can be subjective if we need to, based on how things are playing out at a point in time. Maybe Jessica or maybe Bart is having a hard time at home. That's okay. That's life. It happens for all of us. But if I'm disconnected all the time from my Bart or Jessica as a leader, how would I know that? So that's not my problem or your problem. That's the leader's problem. That's the hypocrisy. That's the part that we got to get fixed.
But there's so much bullshit. I mean, leaders lie. I just wrote this in my newsletter. Leaders lie all the time. They lie to cover their tail, right? They lie to their leaders they also have blind spots. And how do you sift through the lies? I mean, how do you get to truth?
Well, the truth is, for me, it's the behavior of the senior most executive at any point in time in any room. That's the truth. So, and I think, if we think about the concept of the descendant views or the hierarchy where there's investors, there's boards, there's executives, and then there's teams on the ground. It's the flaw is at the top. The flaw is at the top. The models are wrong. The needs are wrong. And therefore it just continues to dilute what happens within the companies. Someone has to be held accountable. The easiest to hold accountable, right, is, hey, it's the salespeople. They just don't know what they're doing. Well, actually, that's your responsibility to help them and guide them and put them on a path that is acceptable by the company so that they know what they're doing and can be successful. And we break that. If you break that down, it's a failure in leadership, period. Like you can't. We're the least experienced people are usually on the ground. How are you going to blame them when the most experienced people are not doing the work to help them be successful? That's the bullshit. It drives me fucking crazy. I talk with executives all the time about this.
It's funny. I was at a large technology company and they were trying to grow, obviously, as everyone is. And I just remember the system, the structure of the organization and the incentives for the salespeople. It was all about those lone wolf sales leaders or salespeople that were able to get the big deals. And they were incentivized to win, to stay, to grow, right? But then the leadership were saying, you guys need to collaborate more, share leads, pull people into your deals. But the incentive structure didn't exist for that to actually happen.
Yeah.
And so there was a complete lack of alignment, and people would hoard their deals because the system was totally different than what the leaders were saying needed to happen. And it was like pulling teeth, getting the leaders to see, if you want your people to act differently, you have to give them a different experience.
Totally.
Right now, everything that you're telling them is be the lone wolf, be the lone wolf. And so they're being the lone wolf.
It's a common problem. And, in the best case scenario, there are going to be lone wolves. You don't want them to ever damage your company, because that would be a problem. They should never be left in place and damage the company for the sake of a number. We should get them in the room and unpack their brain and let's figure out why they're so good at what they do, repackage it up and put it out into the culture. And now we have an opportunity to balance the performance out. But that's hard. Well, no, it's actually not that hard. It just takes effort and time. And if you have the purest of intentions to grow the company in a balanced and predictable way, then that's the best next action. Otherwise, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Why would comp plans conflict? Why would org structures conflict? Everything is meant to be defined so that everybody knows what they're supposed to do to be successful, but companies fail to put the energy and the effort in to do it. They try, and then they let it fall to the wayside.
So do you have a system for this?
Well, funny that you might ask that. Yes, we do. Like it all comes. So yeah, we've been run. Look, there is a system for this, and it's not for everybody. It's different at every company. But I can tell you this: no matter what system, no matter what technology, no matter what you have, if the people that are on the team aren't invested in following it and putting their fingerprints on it with you as a company, it's not going to happen. So cultures that aren't integrated suffer from that. Everybody drifts off and does whatever they want to do, regardless of the tech stack, regardless of the method, regardless of the system. It does not matter. And then we collect the numbers and we wonder why we miss. Well, we actually know on cadence what we have to do every day in order to not die in obscurity. So if I'm a seller and I'm not speaking to unique personas or different people and sharing on brand, on message, what my company does, I'm failing. But nobody cares to look at that. We just see what happens at the end of the quarter. Or if we're looking at that, that's micromanagement. No, that's not micromanagement. That's what it takes to be successful in industry today. That's your job. Don't get into sales or solutions or whatever it may be if you're not willing to do that. So now we come back to the corporate entity. How about you set that expectation from day one in the interview process? Here's how we run our field organization. You'll be expected to X, Y, and Z. Here's the assets that we're giving you and the learning path or the curricula or the workflow and the coaching that ensure you'll be successful. And guess what? If you don't want to do it, it's probably not a fit for our culture. That's how this is supposed to work. But we're scared, even though there's how many people, there's so much top talent sitting on the street right now, but we keep what we have. We accept the results that we get. And then we wonder why things are decaying. I just think it's in our control.
Well, I think so too. I mean, that's one of the central tenets of what we work on, is creating a culture of accountability,
Yeah, but with the resources and the help and the trust, we all say, oh no, we're an open, trusting culture. As soon as someone opens their mouth, they're pushed to the corner. You have to know where you're going and how you're getting there. And if you do, you can let it rip, because it shouldn't deviate from what the right activity and behavior is. Let people talk. Let's hear it. And you know what? It's a choice. Right to work. We both have a choice. So I don't know. I think it's broken in general. Companies are broken. They're scared. I think companies are scared.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that fear is the source of most dysfunctions in corporations. Yeah. And it's at every level. It's not, I think CEOs are scared, and I think frontline workers are scared. Everyone is scared.
It's hard. And it shouldn't be that way, because if we just sit down now I know that I'm simplifying it, but if we just have a pattern and we communicate on pattern and we're genuine, if we're honest about the numbers and the models and we don't arbitrarily try to make them richer than they are, then the existence becomes pretty natural. And we can drive performance improvements through people by doing that. But when something's out of balance or someone accepts what is not necessarily true or defensible and then starts to build their business around it, it's over. You can't recover from it unless it's a hard reset. So I just think you got to do it consistently from day one and be honest and transparent up and down the org and with your teams as well.
So tell me what Skillibrium is.
Well, I'll tell you how we got there, and that'll help. So, I had a wonderful run with 3 companies: BMC Software in the beginning, Splunk, and then OutSystems. In fact, I know you had a guest, Doug Merritt, earlier. I worked with Doug for a while at Splunk. It was a wonderful experience, and we realized that you can only set so many patterns that you can reinforce and hold accountable to, and as soon as you arbitrarily set patterns you can't keep up with, then everybody loses confidence, right? You're like, oh, they're not going to measure that, so it doesn't matter, I won't do it. But if you normalize it, and we did this at Splunk really well, if you normalize at an intersection of value where multiple people that are in a common organization share information, collaboration, data, and or a workflow or process, and they share common skills that can be applied for success. For us, that's an intersection of value. Skillibrium drops revenue teams into an intersection of value, and then lays out with curricula at the role-based skill level, with workflow and playbooks at the doing level, and then coaching at the improving level within a 4-box, where we can ensure in real time, on cadence, if someone's within the band of success or not. And it's all based on role-based skills proficiency and the application of that in their job, and then coaching to improve those skills. So it's a connective thread that allows teams that collaborate on revenue to hold each other accountable and face customers on brand and on point in a true and genuine way.
I think I get what you're saying about it being objective now.
Okay.
Your system allows for objectivity in what is currently a subjective environment. Is that it?
That's accurate. Yeah, that's
okay, it. Because it didn't really make sense to me at the beginning of this, because you're saying we've got to be objective, but the whole system is built around it can't be objective because you've got personalities and lies and people who are having their agenda advanced through, sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious manipulation of the system, right?
Totally.
So what you're saying is, let's remove all of that with a system that you used a lot of words, 4-box and, cadence, et cetera, and so forth. But break it down. You're basically creating a way for people to develop and get measured on their ability to drive results that is objective, so that leaders have data that they need to make correct and objective business decisions around talent. Is that it?
Absolutely. And then in hierarchy, the same models, they nest up to the top. So every level is held accountable to helping every level be accountable. That's how it works. So
how do you do that?
In hierarchy. So if you think about a revenue organization, you have a team, you have directors with teams, you have regions with multiple teams, you have a CRO, you have geographies, and then you have CRO or GO. So the idea is, if we have a performance pattern, we'll just use the Americas as an example, where we know what selling teams are supposed to do, then at every level, the line leadership, the second line leadership, and the third line leadership in the Americas have to be in sync on how you're going to go do that within reason. It's not meant that we're robotic about it, but the standard's the standard. And if you hold and help to the standard, you get higher level of performance. So we're standardizing in hierarchy. And then we have a descendant view visualization on that, where leaders know what their leaders are doing, know what their teams are doing, and can pinpoint red or green where skill proficiency is low, leading indicators of activity are low, and then therefore performance will degrade and eventually miss. And that's what we do.
Is this just for revenue teams, or what about like product development?
It's interesting that you mentioned that. So yeah, NPI. It is interesting because there's two conversations I had yesterday on NPI, where we do it for NPI as well. We can do it for anything.
Can you define NPI?
It's new product introduction. Is that what you were referring to?
I was talking about people in jobs other than sales.
Yes, the answer is yes. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
You can define
Tell us
it all.
more.
Yeah, so I'll use the NPI example because it came up, right? So if you're building a product and it has to go to a revenue team, there's a sequence of steps you follow to build that product, and there should be a business case associated with it where the revenue teams are aligned that they can sell that product once it's ready, and they're going to be prepared in advance. Well, that's all sequenced, and those are skills that you have to learn, and yet companies produce products, they don't even tell the field about them, and then they roll them out, and then the business case crashes because they never really followed the steps that they were supposed to follow. Well, all of that should be objective, but they do it in a subjective way. So therefore, the integrity of it breaks down. It's not a checkbox. Here's exactly how we do it. Here's how we do it better than everybody else. And that's why we're following this process so that we can compete and have opportunities to grow as a company. So you don't do it arbitrarily, you define it, and then you hold each other accountable to it and you measure it. And that's how we find success. I mean, I try to make it as simple in my mind as possible. I know there are so many in industry that have not been exposed to scale or to this type of approach that it's hard. Business is very hard, but the more objective and the more prescribed you can be as you plan, the freer you will be as you operate. And that's what people don't understand.
So I'm thinking about when I was at Oracle in 2013, 14, I worked with the head of cloud, whose job it was to take us to market in the cloud. And we were an on-prem company. And the sales reps had no idea about cloud. Very few had any cloud experience or knowledge whatsoever. And here we were saying we're moving to the cloud. The compensation structure made them scratch their heads. Why would I sell a cloud deal, right? And everything was misaligned. And his job was to get people aligned around, we're creating a cloud company out of non-cloud DNA. So there was an education component, there was a timing component, but everything had to change because it wasn't just a new product, right? It's a new operating model. It's a new language. It's a new customer. It's a new everything.
New revenue recognition, everything.
Obviously, right? But more than anything, it was people from the on-prem world afraid that they were no longer going to be relevant in the future. That was the number one thing that we had to deal with, was the fear people had about taking on change. And so I think about AI now, and the fear that must exist. I mean, you've seen the media's mood about AI go like this in the last 2-3 years, right? I mean, the AI summit in January where JD Vance gave a speech was all about no regulation, no regulation. And European world leaders were saying the same thing. Well, now we found out that ChatGPT is trying to prevent itself from shutting down and everyone's panicked again. But this is the exact same panic we saw basically a year ago today.
Yeah.
We forgot about for 6 months. So as you're seeing companies and enterprise move towards AI, a brand new system of operating again, how are you at the forefront of this, or what are you seeing?
So great question, by the way. And all of your, everything you shared, it's so obvious, like everybody's seeing it. It's a pendulum swing. Too much regulation, not enough regulation. All AI, maybe not ready for that. Klarna, all these other companies that tried and failed and now have to reverse their strategies because they didn't do the right due diligence going in, because it's a race rather than pragmatic decision making along the way. So for us, we're fortunate where our development and the on ramp of AI coincided. We were not AI first. We're business process first, with AI helping business process perform better, more efficiently, and model what next best actions are. So our AI is horizontal under the covers. Thank goodness, because if we would have started before the whole AI boom came out, we would probably be behind and be refactoring like everybody else. So right now, for us, AI as a way to help our system be more efficient, help our customers make the right choices, model their data and information is how we're using it. So we're using it as a way to augment business process and make it more efficient, more fast, and more accurate. And that's how we do it within Skillibrium. Now, I can tell you, there's customers that completely over-rotated on AI. AI. Everybody's going to do AI. And then they're like, oh, wow, people have to actually take what AI produces, unless it's doing complete agentic AI on the low end where it's transactional and there's no people involved. Love that. But when AI brings information, whether it's documents, whether it's presentations, whether it's pre-work for prospect and customer engagements, people have to then deliver that. Well, they're the common denominator in all of this, being successful or not. It's back to the people and the culture taking the information that AI has served them and applying it in the best way, the most professional way, so that they can advance their cause, whatever it may be. But we all forgot about that. We all forgot about it. We just said AI is going to fix everything, and it's not. It's not.
Not yet, anyway. I mean, I think 5 years from now, it's going to look a lot different than anyone really imagines. I'm curious where we're headed, because I don't think we have figured. I've heard a lot of theories, and I think anyone that thinks they know what 5 years from now looks like is probably trying to sell you something, right?
I have a perspective on not necessarily what will happen in 5 years, but people say, yeah, AI is coming for your job. If we think about human nature, most of us strive for more. There's got to be a new way. Humans are very adaptive. Well, if the bottom we'll call it the segments of revenue that AI might affect, the transactional segments that AI can pick up and take humans away from because of efficiency. Well, those humans have to just learn new skills to move up to the next level of capability within their body, their minds, to do their work. And there's usually a job available for that, for people that are willing to do that. So AI isn't necessarily taking their jobs away. It's changing the segments of how you do work. The highest the engagement at the enterprise level will be human to human without question. So all we're saying is at the top end, we have to get even more creative as humans to do more relationship building, more alignment, and create large transactions that require personal interaction, creativity, where on the low end, we're going to pick it up with AI. Now, AI can help us do all this on the high end, but it's certainly not going to replace us doing it. It's not going to replace Bart and Jessica having this conversation. I don't see it. Personally, I don't want that to happen.
I think the strive for more and relationship building are often at odds, because relationship building doesn't work if it's towards an agenda for more, right? I mean, that's networking.
No, I don't agree with you. I don't.
Okay, why?
What are we doing? We're just existing. I know you're not in your role just to exist. You're trying to drive change. You want cultures that are thinking and trying to pursue more. That's what I want.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with the strive for more. What I'm saying is a lot of people do quote relationship building, which is really just networking and meeting people in an effort to get more, and it's not an authentic relationship.
Oh, all right. Let me challenge it. I don't know that my mindset doesn't think about it that way, provided those that are collaborating together have like-minded interests of improving something.
Right.
To me, that is networking for mutual benefit. That's business at its best. Now, if I'm trying to improve my position to take advantage of that other person at the same time, that's hypocrisy. I'm not doing that. I'm going to find people that have like-minded interests that are trying to change their business and their companies for the better. And I want to be a part of that. That to me those are the type of people I'm pursuing in life. And I would hope all the people that are around me are trying to do the same thing, because we're in a capitalistic country, right? That's how we have to improve that way.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with that. And then I wonder, I had lunch the other day with a mentor of mine that I've known for, 15 years probably, and they're retired now. And they were, so to speak, a mover and a shaker in the business world. And they said that when they retired, 99% of the people that they had built relationships with in their career stopped reaching out. I mean, they were inauthentic relationships because when this person retired and there was nothing left to strive for, no moreness to be provided or taken, the relationship disappeared, right? So is that a real relationship, or is that a business relationship? And we all know it's not a real friendship or whatever. It's just a business. It's a different category.
This is really good. It's a business relationship. There was clearly some mutual benefit to that without your mentor staying in role dissipated. Now, there are some that remain. Like, I have similar situations where people I've done business with for years that have retired, I still play golf, or I'll still visit them when I'm in their town. And it's not as frequent, but the relationship is still there, and that door is always open. So I look at it that way.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think in my head, the business relationships, they're not real. I see them all as not real until they become real. I want my business relationships to be real relationships, ones that if they no longer had a mutual self-interest, we would still care about each other and talk to each other, right? That is actually, I'm having a massive insight, Bart. Are you my business therapist right now?
I'll happy to be, but I don't know. I think you're Nirvana. You're thinking Nirvana right now. Like, I agree. Like, that would be awesome, but there's only so many cycles in the day, so you do have to prioritize who you're spending your time and your relationships with for mutual benefit. And then the rest goes to family or whatever it may be, right? Like, or you intermingle. In the best case scenario, you intermingle it all. Like, I'll travel with my family. I'll visit, people I do business with and and I know their families sometimes. Those are real relationships. It's not as frequent though, like, as you continue to go through life, because you get busy. So I don't know. I like where you're going.
No, I think it's interesting. I mean, maybe I'm just being unrealistic, or maybe, it's like a delusion, a Pollyanna delusion, that I want it to all be like a spiritual connection with everyone that I have a quote relationship with, and there are some people that I have that with, but I think oftentimes you have to go through some kind of tribulation or trial and persevere. My New Year's resolution this year was to raise the stakes. That's what I don't think the stakes are high enough.
I don't think accountability is high enough. You mean, like, when you say raise the stakes, what are you describing?
I want to give a shit more, and I don't give a shit about quarterly earnings. I care about making an impact. I think the work that we're doing is going to transform lives, and that's important.
Think about this. So, yeah, I think it's very difficult to move the needle in very large enterprises that are already on their path, right? That's a hard thing to do. You can do it at the team level. Results will happen, but when we're in mid-size or companies that are trying to do something unique and different, our imprint, or the concept of people first and high integrity, and everybody pursuing a common mission. It's a noble. That to me is the best case scenario. And then personal agendas creep in. We know that we have to manage that openly and talk about it so that we can bring this entity or organization we're working with up to the next level as they scale. More people come in, they get indoctrinated, they understand, not in a cult-like way, in a belief and culture consistency and repeating of the message, translating of the message. You don't just say the words once. If you're going to tag those words for your culture, as an example, they have to be lived. So yeah, we're transparent, but I'm not going to tell you everything because I can't. It's, you can say transparency in business is a need to know, right to know, and it's hierarchical in a sense, because senior executives can't be transparent about everything, but we can be directionally encouraging. We can share the right message and build the right environment that helps companies scale. And while it might not be nirvana or perfect or Pollyanna, it would be better than no communication at all. Like I have customers we work with where the leaders in many cases hadn't talked with their teams in weeks. Like they just collect numbers, or they don't even have formal structured meetings. Like who does that?
Oh, well, our clients do that. I have a client who hired us because of a lack of alignment. And then we found out that they don't have any team meetings. We're like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I've got an idea for you. It's a novel concept, but maybe you want to try meeting with your people to get alignment. I mean, it's not rocket science, but actually what ended up happening, the reason they didn't have meetings, it was a conscious choice by the leader to only have one-on-ones with everyone that reported into him so he could control the narrative. So he could hoard information, make sure that certain people heard about certain things and not others, that he was delivering messages. It was a complete control freak mentality.
Yeah, that's not good.
Was totally toxic. But there's that level of transparency, which is zero, right? And then there's the opposite transparency where you're telling everyone everything and then it creates chaos, which you don't want either. I think it's for leaders, the balance is in questioning what we can and can't say because there are corporate norms that are collective global norms about what you can and can't share that we've bought into without questioning it. I think we could share more than we do, but we don't because it's just the way we do things around here. It's our existing static culture of how work works, right? But then I also think that it's totally fair to say that's something I can't share with you right now for various reasons and explain those reasons, but I will when I can.
And that's legitimate. How legitimate is that? You would feel the person on the receiving end would go, all right, I get it.
All right.
No problem.
I interviewed Pete Stavros, who's the co-head of private equity at KKR in this podcast. And he said that they experimented in one of their portfolio companies with massive transparency because they implemented an ESOP. So every employee was a stock owner, and then they had to educate them on financial literacy and therefore business results. These are manufacturing frontline workers. And they said, well, we can't just give these people stock and not explain anything to them.
I love this.
So they did it. And he said it was a risk. There were a lot of people saying we shouldn't do this, but it actually was really fabulous and drove results. That's an example of why are you so committed to hiding things from the front line instead of telling people that maybe there's not a good reason behind that decision?
I think that how are you going to grow those front lines or those ground level people doing the work? How are you going to grow them into your organization and keep raising the bar in the company if you don't bring them on that journey? Literally. Yeah. You can't corner them off. Oh no, that's a job. Well, I don't think anybody, realistically, no one should want just a job at a certain point in their career. But that might be Pollyanna as well. Maybe some people do just want jobs.
I think some people do. I could see myself just wanting a job. I mean, because sometimes I have for 5 years now, I've thought about quitting the corporate life and becoming a hospice nurse. You know, like that would be
that's amazing.
Well, yeah, wouldn't it? I mean, I'm doing death doula training right now and I'm going through it and I'm like, maybe I should just give it all up and just go sit with the dying. Like that feels like just a job, but one that would be
a really important job. If you've been through this, by the way, that is a really important job.
It is a very important job. And, you know, there's this is totally off topic, but there is a center that's opening in Sacramento, just 10 minutes from my house, which is homeless hospice. There are only 7 in the nation, 7 centers where homeless can go for hospice care, because the only way you can qualify for hospice is 1, if you have a prognosis of 6 months or less to live, and 2, if you have a place for care. So you have to have insurance to be in a facility, or you need to have money, or you have to have a home. And so the homeless, because they don't have a place for care, they're often just sent back out on the streets and then they die alone on the streets. So I'm going to volunteer there anyway. I'm very excited about that.
Well, you're a better person than me because that is not on my list now. But, you know, I'm a torn, my wife's Danish, by the way. So we had a family member, not that we should have the rest of our conversation on hospice, but the experience of hospice in Denmark is far different than here. Like we went to visit a dying relative and got to visit them in hospice, and it was a really glorious place on the water with a menu where you picked certain meals, and the family had rooms to stay. obviously a different system there. But that part was pretty cool. I always, I'm the capitalist in the family. And so we have our debates on why.
Yeah. Well, let's tie it back to capitalism, because I think we have been talking about what's wrong with capitalism, which is the fear that the people in the system hold, right?
Yeah.
And I think, what is everyone's greatest fear? It's of dying alone, right? Or just dying in general, or second to speaking on stage, I think, which is hysterical to me. But if you think about it, when people are afraid, they shut down and they don't speak up, right? I was noticed when my dad died 6 years ago. He's French, and so I have half of his people were French and half of his people were American. And the Americans, their reaction was to just shut down, to be quiet, to stop talking. They were like, "We're going to give you your space. We'll circle back in 3 months when we think you're done grieving." The French inundated me with communications, started reaching out, writing me these long notes about stories of what they remember from my dad. Very different cultures on communication and connection. And I think when Americans are in fear, they're quiet, and I think that is similar, not that we need to find a connection between hospice and capitalism right now, but I guess we just did. It's like, we don't talk about death. We don't talk about what's broken in a company. We don't talk. We just
I think you're right.
Fly under the radar.
Well, and then the decay continues. That's what ends up happening. So
exactly.
Back to the capital in companies, when there is no connective thread from CEO to the line on that transparency, on why the stock option plan is valuable to you and why we're giving you shares, because it creates a relationship with the company's performance and how you show up every day, because there's benefit to you if we keep growing. And if we do keep growing, you can be promotable. Like, these are things that we did this at Splunk so well. And like, that changed my life personally, changed my life. And I don't understand why others can't do it. It's not that hard. It's a choice. You don't say it and then let it fade away. You just start doing it, and you bring people. Someone has to lean forward and start doing it. And those are the courageous leaders that end up creating great companies and changing industries.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I used to date the CEO of a big of a hospital, basically. And he used to talk about, he really wishes he could be one of the highway lawnmowers, like a lawnmower on the side of the highway doing that, because the pressure can be so much,
I can relate.
Can you? Okay, so maybe you do just want a job.
I can relate. No, I have a tractor because it is a wonderful separation from reality, where that tractor and the headset and mowing the pasture is a beautiful, simple time where you're just trying to get the lines right.
Exactly.
And you clear in your head, and it's like, because, as we know, in business, it's very hard. It's not really for everybody. And you shed tears. There's a fact. That's a fact. You stare at people that and you're like, oh my God, I don't know if there's a way out of this. Like, it's gonna be bad.
Here's another example, right? So when I was a CHRO at a technology company, the first week that I joined, we had a leadership offsite that kicked off with a board meeting, and I was invited into the board meeting, and I was told, you guys got to do layoffs. And so it was like, welcome to the company. Your first task will be to lay off a bunch of people that you're, quote, building relationships with. And so we didn't know exactly. We still hadn't even gotten to the point of knowing how many layoffs we had to, do the math and figure out what budget are we looking for here? How many people does that roughly translate to? How are we going to reorg? When is it going to happen? All of that. And the way that it is in the corporate world in America is impending layoffs are super top secret.
Yep.
To everyone except for those at the highest level of the organization who need to know. Sometimes you trickle in some folks like management who are going to have to execute on the layoffs or help you decide who's going to get laid off, and certainly HR. But you hold that information close because why? Because you don't want to create fear, sure. But second, you don't want people to leave, which is so funny to me because you're trying to get people to leave, right?
Yeah. So give them a choice.
Why? You don't want them to leave if they're top talent. You just want the bad people to leave and not the good people to leave. And you know that top talent, they have plenty of options. And so it's this very selfish way of leading that is not transparent. So I said, I'm going to tell my team. And the CEO was like, well, you can't tell. And I was like, let's just try it. So I did tell my team that we were going to have layoffs. And I said, I don't know when, I don't know how many, I don't know who. You could be laid off, maybe not. It's going to take us some time to figure this out. And people started looking for jobs on my team. And then some people found jobs and then some people quit. And by the time we ended up doing the layoffs, my team was exempt because I had already right-sized. Right. And the people who were left, they are so loyal. They're so grateful. Yeah. I could call them 10 years later and be like, do you want to come work for me? And the answer is yes.
You were transparent.
Because the trust was built there, right?
Yeah.
Why don't more people do that?
I think it's scary. It's you feel like you're losing control. Fear. Yeah. You feel like you're losing control by doing that. But guess what? We're not in control. We're not in complete control anyway. There's too many variables. So it's back to this internal standard in the way you run a company is the only thing you can somewhat put within a range of predictability, right? Your own people, your own process. You can't control the markets and the micro and macroeconomic elements. You can't. They change constantly. But most companies don't even concentrate on a baseline of how we're going to run our company and communicate and be transparent. Let's face it. So then, therefore, you got a bunch of bouncing balls and a bunch of bouncing balls, and it's chaos. Well, I'm saying let's at least set a baseline. Let's agree, Bart and Jessica, this is how we're going to do it. And to the best of our ability, we're going to hold each other accountable. And then we're going to bring others along on that journey. And we're going to be transparent and honest. And we're going to have shared success. We're going to miss sometimes, but that's okay. But if we do these things, then we know that we'll have a higher chance of taking it to the next level. Everybody in my world wants to hear that. But you have to follow through and do it.
My biggest takeaway from the episode with Doug Merritt was that he was hyper-focused on learning as we go, and he surrendered the outcomes, right? The outcomes, we have a goal, but you don't focus on the goal because that's the control-based, fear-based focus. You focus on what did we learn today? How can we improve? And then the goal will come, or it won't, but we've done the best that we can. It's planning for the future, but being present in the moment for business.
Yeah, hard to do. And when you do it, and Splunk's a great example of that, and you have a group of people in majority that trust each other and that operate in a common way with the same principles, magic happens. And that's what that run was like. So yeah, he's a good human.
Yeah, when I finished that episode, I emailed my boss, Joe Terry, who's the CEO at Culture Partners, and I was like, Doug Merritt was the best interview I've had. I learned so much on that call. You got to listen to it.
You can't say that, and maybe you can't say that anymore. At least this one has to be decent.
This one's pretty good. We went deep. I mean, we're talking about hospice. We're talking about all sorts of stuff. Yeah, no, for sure. Joe and I are writing a book that is called Surrender to Lead, which is going to come out at the end of the year. And it's all about this concept of you can't control the uncontrollable. So stop trying, surrender, not as in give up, but just focus on what you can control, which is ultimately the experiences you create for people.
That's exciting. And it's right on point. And I believe exactly in that. So that's the leading indicator of behavior or activity that drives the result. You don't chase the result. You just focus on what you know the next best action is, and you do it in a quality way.
You just wrote part of my book. There's a model called the shift model, and T in the shift is take the next right action instead of just more action.
Exactly.
Right? It's what's the right action.
And maintain the integrity. So if we know that action is sits at that intersection where many people can reuse that particular action, that's what you want to focus on. And then you want to empower everybody to whatever skill it takes for that action. You want to give them the skill. You want to help them execute and give them the confidence to keep doing that. The result will take care of itself, to your point.
Yeah.
No question. That's why unique meetings, we talk about it all the time. If you have accounts and you're not talking to unique people in those accounts, you'll die in obscurity. If you're trying to build a company and you're not speaking with unique people every day, different about what you're doing, you'll die in obscurity. But people take jobs where they're supposed to be front and center. They're supposed to lead a room. They're supposed to engage with peer executives. They're supposed to find business problems and fix them. And they have the fear every day. They have fear in their soul that they're going to be wrong when they try to do that. And they don't do it. So they wither away and the companies let them. And then the company's growth slows down and it kind of repeats itself. So yeah, I like it.
Well, Bart, this has been an awesome conversation. I have one last question for you, which is, what is something that you don't get asked about very often that you wish you were asked more often in conversations like these?
How did you get to where you are today?
And how did you get to where you are today?
A lot of really hard work and mistakes and some strong mentors that kind of right-sized my mind and attitude. And that didn't happen until I was roughly in my mid-30s, honestly. I thought I knew everything. And I had a couple executives that are still dear friends of mine. One is an investor and a mentor, and he just like, you're wrong. And he helped me understand that, I had to open my mind and be a little more coachable. And that I would be a lifelong learner if I did that. And that kind of changed my life, honestly.
That's pretty incredible. What were you wrong about?
That I knew everything.
Yeah. Okay. All of it, basically.
All of it. Yeah. Like I had a myopic thinking, a very fixed mindset that life was a certain way, and it was nothing. My life now is nothing like that. And it's because I changed that and I became comfortable with not being right. I didn't have to be right. I just had to learn and then take an action. So it changed my life. Yeah, that's it. That's how I got here through, I'm what we call a journeyman.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bart, so much for sharing your learnings with us and spending an hour with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if I manifested this or not, but I was like, I need to be on that podcast with Jessica. I've watched it. I'm like, she is a spitfire. Like, we will dig in and get it done. And sure enough, here we are. So
you did manifest it because you know how we met. I saw you commenting on all my stuff online consistently. And I'm like, who is this guy? He must
and then I
really believe in what I believe in. And no, I think I messaged you. You messaged me and I ignored it. And then I messaged you like 7 months later.
Yeah. And I am a big believer in you can manifest. That is how success is created. You don't wait for it. You do it.
Okay. Let me give away one of the chapters in the book, Surrender to Lead, right now. I am a huge believer in manifesting. We have a joke in our house, which is from a line. Do you watch Love Island, the reality TV show?
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, someone in your family does.
My 18-year-old does.
Yeah. Okay. So I love that show. It's my vice. And there's this one episode where this 22-year-old says, like, I'm really into manifesting. And then the girl goes, oh my God, I love manifesting. And we laugh because it's become this commercialized idea that is completely devoid of the core principles of what it really is, which is at a spiritual level, that you are what you think and you create your life through your thoughts, right? And it's not about like, I'm just going to write the word $1 million over and over again, and then I'm going to have $1 million, but whatever. So I believe in manifesting, but I think one blind spot that a lot of leaders have, which is in the Surrender to Lead book, is that they think that the power of manifesting is transferable to someone else, that when you're now leading a team, that you can just get people to do more by saying, focusing on more action. I mean, that was what manifesting ultimately is. For me, it was just having an idea and then executing on that idea and then getting the thing that I executed on, right? But that doesn't work when you're leading a whole group of people and you're just trying to get them to manifest your wishes, right?
Yeah, it has to be shared, I think. Otherwise it doesn't, that's the trick. That's not what's the right word? It's not the trick. Understanding that
the trap.
The trap is not getting to the layer of helping them achieve what their why is, which is how we started this in the first place.
Yeah, boom, bookending it.
If you really can be close enough to your teams, get them comfortable enough where there is a genuine relationship within a company, right? Not that that relationship supersedes performance, but that relationship takes us to a common place and a common vision. Now you're manifesting together, and that's powerful.
You want to find people that want to manifest the same thing that you want to manifest. And if they don't want to manifest that thing, well, then you can create an experience for them that maybe shifts their belief that now they do, right? So that's the goal. What you can't do is just say, what you want is for us to achieve $100 million in revenue. That's not going to work.
No, that's not happening. And in fact, there's 1,000 companies out there that's not happening for, that said that and got money, and then it's poof, it just disappears.
Yeah, the way we changed it at our company, our goals were revenue dollar based. For our big vision, our 5-year vision was a number that we hoped to achieve. And then at some point along the line, we realized, like, no one cares about this number. We're a private equity backed firm. Like, why do we care about them making money, And we changed it to be the number of lives impacted.
I like that.
And we know from our pricing calculator how many lives we will have had to impact with our IP in order to hit that number. And so we just converted from dollars to lives. And now you got 50 people at the company who are really excited about impacting lives, who it's the same goal, but
and the revenue happens as a byproduct of that.
Right. Because it's, those are our clients. So if we impact that many lives, it means we sold that many
I
deals.
Love it. It really is. That's hard for people to wrap their head around. They think that early in career, you think that's Pollyanna, by the way, early in career. Right. But then you start to mature and you realize everything's about a business process or some type of speed to market or reduced risk or reduced cost. But if you just push that to the side and you talk about what you're talking about, how are we going to affect lives? And we'll pull everything along with that. It changes the dynamic completely. I think you have to have a certain level of maturity to do that.
Well, I don't know if it's maturity. You have to believe in what you're selling.
Oh, that's a fact.
You have to actually think that what you're selling will be better for the people whose lives you're impacting. I mean, I sold books door to door when I was in college, and I actually thought that the books were going to be helpful. They were to help parents tutor their kids around new math, because all the parents had learned old math and now schools had new math. And so I was selling these books door to door, and I really thought, man, it would have been helpful if my mom knew new math when I was learning it. And so I was one of their top salespeople, but I didn't even know I was a top salesperson. I was just like, no, you really need this. And that belief translated to sales, right?
Yeah, totally. I love that. I think that's when it's pure. It's pure, right? You were just doing what you thought was right, and it pulled the revenue or pulled the sales with it. Yeah.
And I'm still doing what I think is right. I have to believe in it if I want it, at least for me. Otherwise, I'll just get a job.
I'm with you. If it's not in my soul, then I can't stand up there and fake it. I cannot do it, literally. So you get what you get. It's real for me, just like it's real for you. So this was awesome. Thank you very, 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 very much.
Thank you so much, Bart.
All right. Take care.